Roger fucking Waters, Pink fucking the Dark Side of the Moon. I mean, seriously, my friend, you can't just take it and shit on it. Roger Waters has re-recorded The Dark Side of the Moon. And in one way, it's the worst thing he could have done. And in another way, it's a great work of art. And I'm saying that I'm in the middle of listening to it. It's hard to listen to because it's not actually, entertaining or nostalgic. Much of rock and roll nowadays for a guy of my age is nostalgia. So, it's not like listening to the original where I go, oh, it's a new work of art. And, okay, let me say this. I don't really like Roger Waters. And mainly because, his stance in the Israel-Palestine situation. It's kind of this knee-jerk leftist liberal stance where, Palestine is, in the Western eyes, the underdog, and Israel is the bad guy. And so you take a stance against Israel, and pretty soon you find yourself repeating anti-Semitic tropes and falling into the propaganda hands of terrorists, basically. So I don't like his political stance. I don't think he's politically very intelligent, and this is nothing new. This goes back to The Dark Side of the Moon, where he made a great, super popular, best-selling pop song about money, about the evils of capitalism, and it made him rich. It's like John Lennon singing Imagination. It made him a multimillionaire, And it's like, this is the ultimate capitalist, business plan, is to rail against capitalism and rake in the money doing it. And this is what he did, and now he's railing against Israel, which represents, in the Israel-Palestine conflict, the values of Western democratic society, and he's holding up the values of medieval style dictatorship terrorism, and really bloodthirsty, vengeance driven, nihilistic, death cult Palestinian propaganda. And this is not actually what he lives, but he does it because he wants to be cool, just because, at least that's my theory. Just like he did money. So I don't trust him for that. I don't believe him for that. I don't take him seriously politically. But I gotta say, Money, the song, it's a great song. It's a great tune, and it reminds you, even as you strive for money, and even as you say, as you get older, hey, I'm a capitalist, and I like capitalism. Capitalism is it works much better than communism. So I'm a capitalist. And even as you do that, you sing this song and you hum the song and listen to the song, and it reminds you that just the basic message that money is not everything. And which is true. That basic message is true. It's not everything, and it's not, it has nothing, really little to do with life in the end, even though it's important and we all want it. And I certainly want it, but that's not what life is about. And so in that sense, the song is real. And the whole album, Dark Side of the Moon, was real and true. It's a work of art. And so was The Wall, by the way. And that makes Roger Waters and all the members of Pink Floyd, but it makes Roger Waters an artist, and a truthful artist, an artist who strove for truth and found it and gave it to us. And so even though I don't like his politics, I honor him and respect him as a real, actual artist of our time. And a good one, an important one. He's never going to be honored in I don't know, whatever, the New York Times, or academic whatever, for his art, but in fact he touched us and moved us in in many serious ways, much more than, even more than the great artists, from Beethoven to Chagall, frankly. And this was great art, and it moved us, it touched us, it reached out to us, and it grabbed us by our heartstrings and our souls, and it shook us. And even now, 40 years later, I'm 60s, 40 years later, I'm moved by this. I could cry listening to Dark Side of the Moon. And, when the guy says, when your life, this and that is not in tune, I'll meet you on the dark side of the moon. I'm thinking, oh my God, that's been true all my life, and it's still true today. I'm an outcast. I cannot understand the society. Society cannot understand me. I do not understand my own life. I'm an outcast of my own life. And there we are. And I would like to be standing there in the darkness, on the dark side of the moon, just me and an Indian spaceship and Roger Waters. And I would be happy with that. Bring a bottle of whiskey, Roger, and we'll be happy for, the nanosecond that we can survive on the dark side of the moon. Okay, so the subject at hand, I tend to get off topic. People have complained about that. One guy, a friend of mine, has complained. Two friends. The only two friends I have who actually watch these videos have complained about it. So that's 100% of the people I know have complained about this video, and probably everyone else who I don't know who have watched these videos have also complained about it. So it's probably 100% of the people who watch these videos say, Eric, you get, you wander, you meander, you're getting off topic. And some guy said it's because of ADHD, which I have been diagnosed with, and I'm taking pills against. But it doesn't stop me from meandering. The pills don't stop me from meandering. And I actually like meandering. So I'm trying to, like in my other work, in the books I write, in articles I write, in Poetry and Purpose, the newsletter, Poetry and Purpose, which features, articles. I just published another edition of Poetry and Purpose just last week in English and this week in German. And I'm really proud of that newsletter. It has a variety of different articles and posts that are important to me, and it has a wide spectrum of topics, and that's who I am. I'm a guy with a wide spectrum of topics in my mind. They're all recognizable as topics that I like because I talk about it all the time. It's always the same thing, but yeah. So I meander maybe because of ADHD. Maybe it's just me, but I feel at home doing that. Okay, so going back to the subject, before I meandered talking about the meandering, the subject is Roger Waters and the goddamn new version of Dark Side of the Moon. So I guess during lockdown and probably afterwards, he sat around in his basement plunking on the guitar and doing his computer, laptop, Apple, mixing, sound engineering thing, and he made a new version of The Dark Side of the Moon, the entire album, every song new. The actual music, though, is not better and not half as good. It doesn't have the crispiness, the power, the conviction of these young guys, and I guess probably they were in their 20s when they did it, Pink Floyd, 30s maybe. The conviction that they were telling the truth, that they were seeing some kind of truth and telling it, and they were. Dark Side of the Moon is a true album. It is real art, and they had that conviction and the power, the hormones and the blood rushing and the adrenaline and the dark side of the moon, and they had all that. And this does not have that. This is the work of an old man. Okay, fair enough. And that part of it is actually very beautiful. I find it beautiful. He takes the music, he kind of re-records it. He doesn't sing it as much as he speaks it, kind of in a, old guy voice, can't reach any notes, and the production values are bad. Okay, so it doesn't replace the album, but he's honest. He is heartfelt. He speaks of life just as Dark Side of the Moon and The Wall spoke of life. He talks about, and a lot of it is just spoken. It's not even, he sings the words or kind of tries to sing the words, but a lot of it is just spoken. He talks about, there's one song where he talks about a funeral of a friend, and he says things that were probably like he maybe even reading. He might even be reading a letter that he wrote to someone. He said, I asked Susan for this and that remains of him, and they were mailed to me in the mail. And these are things that don't necessarily mean much to the listener, to me, but you can tell that they mean something to him, and that he is dealing with the end of life, with people dying and facing the end, and how do you say goodbye to friends after they're gone and can't listen to you, and it's honest and beautiful, and you can't listen to it again and again like you can with the original, or with The Wall. It doesn't strike you deep in your heart. No. Let me rephrase that. It does strike you deep in your heart, but it doesn't get you in the way that rock and roll is meant to do. So I only learned about this album because a friend of mine said, "Do you know that Roger Waters re-recorded Dark Side of the Moon?" I said, well, "Really? What is he trying to, get the money for himself, re-recording it so he would have a new copyright and he can, get all the money and doesn't have to share the money with his bandmates or whatever, And he said, "I guess so. I don't know. It's terrible." And he said, "It was really bad." And I said, "It's terrible." And I listened to it, and it is terrible in the sense of music, of rock and roll, but it's beautiful in the sense of a man who has seen a lot of life, lots of life, and looks back and talks about it. And this, the thing that made Dark Side of the Moon and The Wall so good and so true is that they were capable of seeing simple, true truths that other people have a hard time seeing. There's a line in A Dark Side of the Moon, it goes through, it shakes me up every time I hear it. It's at it's Time, I think. It's the Time song where he says, you're chasing after this and chasing after that, and then 10 years, and you look up and 10 years have gone by. And how many times have I looked up in my life and realized that time has gone by and I haven't done what I want to do? I'm not the man I want to be. And this is it's a universal thing that you experience. Every man does. I'm sure most women do too. Probably everyone. And you don't experience that at 25. You experience that at like 35. Maybe they were 35 when they did that album. I don't know. It feels like that. But I remember. My God, I remember doing that when I was like, I was probably 35 or so. I was reading some article. It was when Thriller came out. I think it was Thriller. Or maybe Bad. Okay, Michael Jackson album, right? And there was something of Michael Jackson, and I'm not a huge Michael Jackson fan, though now listening to it, I realize the genius of that music. But back then I was more rock and roll, and that was, I don't know, R&B disco. It wasn't real rock and roll. So I was politically against it, I guess. Politically against music. Kids do that. And there was some TV show or music or a radio show or an article that said, and he's just turned 35. I think it was 35. Could be 40 or 50 even. But then I realized, wait, hold on. Stop the presses. Michael Jackson is 35? I'm 35. Or maybe I was 33 or something. And I thought, oh my God, I always looked at him as like an adult and myself as a kid. I looked at him as like he had reached the pinnacle of his life. He had, his life had gone to its, logical conclusion, and he'd become a star. And I was still in the beginning of my life going to that logical conclusion, which at some point in the far future, far, far future, I would then be a star. But in the meantime, right now, I'm still a kid. I'm still 15 years old. But in fact, I was 35 or 40 years old or something, whatever it was. Thriller or bad? Well, you can figure it out. I was born 60. Whatever Thriller or bad, whenever Thriller or bad came out, one of those, that was the age I was. And I thought, oh my God, I missed the train. I missed the boat. I missed it. I was sleeping. I was goofing off. I was, sitting at home, like Billy Joel said, masturbating, while everyone else was out doing their lives. And Michael Jackson here is the same. That's the standard. The standard is Michael Jackson, right? At 35, world star, the peak of everything. Like him and, maybe Moses and Jesus Christ, that was the level that he was on at the same age I was. And I maybe published a short story or something like that, And I just realized I didn't know that you were supposed to start that young and that much was even possible. I didn't know. I thought I was still an adolescent, and I would be an adolescent much of my life. And this idea of being an adult and having accomplished something was so foreign to me. Such a dream far off. I didn't realize that it's now. And if any kids out there are no kids out there, with 25, 35. But if you are out there, do it now. Now is the time. Now is the standard. The future is not going to happen. Do your great thing now. And that's happened often to me. It wasn't only Michael, it was, Obama, which was, a couple years ago. I was already 60 or 55 or, well, almost 60 when Obama, when he grew up in Kailua, where I grew up. He was my age. He went to a better school, and he had the personality to be a president. He was ambitious, and he could do things, and I couldn't do things, and I was confused and confused, but he had the same background as me mainly, and even you could say even worse. I was white, privileged, right, theoretically, and he was black, which is underprivileged, and yet he went so far that I could not even get close to even get on his his trail of stardust. I couldn't even step into his trail of stardust that he left behind. If you're 20, 25, 30, 35, now is the time, my friends. Okay, so I'm meandering again. I've gone off. But there was something I wanted to say about the art of Roger Waters and Pink Floyd, which is a lot of it is music, of course. It's not just, the text. But I concentrate on text because I'm a writer and I love words. But much of it is the music, obviously. But they were able to say simple things that were true. And when you write, you try to say complicated things. You try to find things that people have never said before. It's something brilliant. You try to go beyond the obvious. But I think it's a real art to be able to state the obvious. To say, in school, our teachers were sometimes assholes. And, and I don't fit in. And, these decisions that people make for us to go to war, not go to war, who are these guys, and why can they make decisions for us? And looking at this world as it, is dumped on me. I'm just this little guy, and with these little feelings, and and the world, and suddenly, and I have to solve the Israeli-Palestine problem. We all do. It's like, the news is dumped on us, like, you make a decision. Where do you stand? It's important where you stand. No matter what I say about Israel and Palestine, it's not going to change anything. It's not going to influence anything. But somehow we have that responsibility, and my God, I'm just a fucking kid, a fucking 65-year-old kid. I can't. What do you expect of me? Well, there was something else I wanted to say too about Roger Waters and Pink Floyd and re-recording The Dark Side of the Moon. Something in general, a more general thing, which is this was music for my generation, but the same goes for every generation. This was music that a guy, a toxic white male, confused, gender confusion, a toxic white male could understand. It was, Simon and Garfunkel, Led Zeppelin, Pink Floyd, all these guys, a lot of these guys, and for some reason, it appealed to the guys. It appealed to girls too. My Astrid, she loves Pink Floyd. But it's something about when I see guys listening to this stuff, I realize that it's true that what people say, we are not really in touch with our feelings, or we don't, at least gush about our feelings. And it takes some rock and roller to sing Dark Side of the Moon or Bridge Over Troubled Waters to make us cry. This is what makes us cry. This is what makes us feel. It's so strange that these guys, these rock and rollers, could get up there and all they want to do, they want to do rock and roll, right? It's like, let's take drugs, let's party. But the songs that we remember are, The Boxer, I'll Meet You on the Dark Side of the Moon. Those are the words that go through us, through our bones and through our muscles and through our blood and our brains. This is what does it. And it's not, Ed Sheeran. Maybe for this generation it is. I don't know. But it's not for me. It's not these, these softies. It's not. It's you got to have a guy really, banging on the guitar, and we're all gonna die. I hate my life. We're all gonna die. And that makes me feel something. That I can listen to it, put in the headphones, turned up loud, and I am an emotional creature once again. And I think that is the same for a lot of men, maybe men in general, kind of like the average guy. And that's why, one of the reasons why rock and roll is so great, because it pretends to be, sex, drugs, and rock and roll, and hedonism, and good times, and party, but it's actually, at least in some moments, in a lot of its best moments, maybe, Stairway to Heaven, come on. Jeez, come on. It's about life and death here, Hotel California. It touches us, man. It reveals who we are in our spirit, in our hearts. And it takes that. Some rock and roller on drugs, who only wants to get laid. That's all he wants to do is get laid with his, that's why he started playing the guitar. But that's what it takes to get through to us. That's who we men are, I guess, in many ways. Well then, here's to us men. Here's to Roger Waters. Thank you for re-recording or making a new introspective version of that classic piece of art that you created or helped create. It's good, and it's good for me personally. I feel something when the artist returns to his art and talks about it, kind of talks to himself about it and lets me listen. You've given me something for this, Mr. Waters. Your politics are shit, but you've given me something. And thank you for this. And thank you all, and good night.